the total national expenditure on the healthcare is staggering at 4.6 trillion USD, which is more than 18% of their GDP.
Within these 10 to 12 minutes, they are supposed to talk to the patient, they are supposed to document certain things, they are supposed to look at their EHR, they are supposed to look at their history, and also make sure that the patient does not feel that they are not focusing on the patient and just looking at their iPad or whatever and doing something.
When we talk about the experience, we can talk about consumer experience. So over the years, what I've seen is that patient experience has improved, but the experience has not substantially improved in comparison to the cost that has gone up.
One interesting question I have for you: can generative AI take over job from doctors, from healthcare providers? Do you think that's a possibility?
There are a lot of concerns around patient safety. There are a lot of concerns around privacy. There are a lot of concerns around security of the data that is being handed out. If humans have to trust this AI, then this AI has to be trustworthy.
Good morning, Bhupesh. How are you?
I'm doing good. Varun, how are you doing?
I am doing excellent. So it's AI everywhere, right? So
Yes.
I'm like diving deep into the world of AI, exploring everything. So that's why we are here today. Have you been exploring generative AI in healthcare, anything like that?
Yes, of course. But before I answer that question, I would like to compliment you, Varun, and your team, because I recall just a couple of days ago, you had a video published on the LinkedIn, and I commented on that saying that we should do a healthcare
Yes,
podcast.
and here we are.
And here we are in
Yep,
2 days.
yep.
That's the speed of lightning, and
Yes,
I
yes,
think
absolutely.
something like generative AI can make this possible.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. Yes.
So now coming back to your question, I can't express how excited I am. I mean, usually I'm not a person to be getting excited so soon, but generative AI is really making me super excited because I believe that it is actually democratizing technology.
Interesting.
It has the transformative ability that we always talked about in healthcare. And I'll substantiate that. I will give you some examples about why I'm thinking that way.
Okay.
Like, if we have to go a little back in 2009, 2010 timeframe, when in US there was an act that was formed. It was called Affordable Care Act,
Okay.
also known as the Obamacare Act.
Oh yeah. I've heard.
You heard of them?
Yeah.
So this act was primarily to provide affordable care to those section of population which did not have insurance coverage, making it affordable for them, and also making sure that their pre-existing conditions are taken care and all.
Got it.
So one of the goals of this Affordable Care Act was to make sure that healthcare costs go down over a period of time, and thus it becomes affordable for everyone.
Got it.
And that actually triggered a lot of technological transformation that has happened in the US, healthcare segment.
Okay.
But we come now to 2023, and when we look at the cost implications, what is happening in the market today, the total national expenditure on the healthcare is staggering at 4.6 trillion USD.
Oh,
which is almost
4.6 trillion US dollars.
4.6 trillion US dollar, which is more than 18% of their GDP. Right? The per capita cost on an average is around 13,000 or more than 13,000 USD per this. So that's for the average normal. For if you take 65 years and above, the cost has gone more than $22,000.
Oh,
right?
Okay.
And the challenge is not that the cost has gone up, but then the outcomes that we are seeing because of this are not in comparable measures with similar developed countries in the Europe, right? So where the per capita cost on healthcare may be $6,000, and the results, the outcomes are better or equivalent to what we get in the US.
Interesting.
So now coming back to this, now what's happening in this cost, there's a large component which we can call it as a waste, right? Almost 30% of this cost goes in the administrative side of the, managing the administrative side of it.
Okay.
Which is not actually adding to the healthcare, but it is reducing. That's where I see a real potential of generative AI to take care of this administrative cost by automating so many things.
Awesome. That makes sense. So just to summarize, the per capita cost in US healthcare is very, very high now.
Yes.
12,000, 13,000 US dollars per year, or whatever you want to call it. And of course, that is definitely very high. And the value that is provided at that cost is still not comparable to the value that is provided in other developed countries in the European Union or wherever at a much lesser cost, right? That's what you're saying.
Absolutely.
And most of that cost is because of the administrative overhead, and generative AI can solve a lot of that administrative overhead. That's excellent. That's something, I hadn't even thought of it that way. Right. Whenever you think of AI in healthcare, I started thinking of things like robots that are doing certain things and things like that, which is something that's probably going to be there very soon. We are not very far from that, but administrative overhead and reducing administrative overhead, definitely, I think that's an excellent use case.
Yes, and those are what we can call as low-hanging fruits. You by doing that, you don't come under the purview of, let's say, an FDA, which has to, you have to get your, tools certified and all that. Right? So it can easily take care. And so that's why you can see today that there are so many people enthusiastically talking about generative AI, and so many use cases. Unlike, you have seen blockchain, when blockchain came in, the technology was awesome, but we had to really scratch our heads to find out what use cases can be solved with blockchain.
Right.
This is not the case. Just today morning, I was reading a paper where they said we have 63 use cases in just solving the problems of pharmaceutical industry, drug development and stuff like that.
Nice.
So this is amazing, right?
Right. Absolutely. And, funny that you mentioned blockchain. I think blockchain as a technology is excellent, but everyone struggle to find use cases in, all industries. It's not just healthcare, right? Across all industries, we struggle to find, where exactly it fits. And then it comes with a lot of other, overhead of, getting approvals and things like that, right?
And the other part of generative AI is that everybody feels that this is doable. You can touch and feel the technology. I think that you should you should give to ChatGPT.
Absolutely.
Everybody thinks it's possible and willing to now is getting interested. Correct. So we have to take it to the next level, and that's what I'm looking forward from you.
Yeah, and to that point, right? Everybody can do anything. So as long as you know English language, you can do anything, right? That's what ChatGPT has made possible, and other models are coming up which are more specialized, which we can probably talk about.
Absolutely.
Okay, so coming back to your previous point about the cost, US is very high, and then you don't get the real value there, right? I have a question there, right? So in I don't know if we can call these people customers or users, but in a lot of other industries, the expectations that customers have, right? Not healthcare, but a lot of other industries, because of the way generative AI is coming up, and the way a few companies are be able to respond to customer queries and are able to manage a huge influx of customer queries, right? The expectations that customers have they have skyrocketed, they have gone up, right? Customers expect you to reply like that, like they ask you a question, they expect a reply, else they go to your competitor. Correct. Is that something we are seeing in the healthcare sector as well? Is the patient expectation going up?
Absolutely. So sometimes they don't like to be called as customers, right? But they're definitely consumers. So when we talk about the experience, we can talk about consumer experience, and patient experience was one of the goals of Obamacare, to make sure that the patient experience remains good. And so over the years, what I've seen is that, and of course, the statistics prove that the patient experience has improved. There are certain things called as CAP surveys that they do to make sure that you measure these experiences, and it shows that experience has improved. But the experience has not substantially improved in comparison to the cost that has gone up, right? So you would typically experience in US a 5-star experience as far as your healthcare is concerned, but that is not the reality. And let me tell you why this is happening. The challenge that we are seeing is that when a patient is trying to go for a visit to the doctor, there are certain things that have to be taken care of prior to his visit, right? To a large extent, these things have been automated, right? You are able to do an automated check-in, you are getting communication, a whole lot of things. But when they go to the physician or the provider for a visit, uh, typically a provider is gets around 10 to 12 minutes with the patient,
Right.
and that's because of the number of patients there to see in a whole day, right? So that's the only time that they can spend with the patient. Now during that 10-12 minutes or whatever time they're spending with the patient, ideally a patient would expect a dedicated attention to them, right? Listening to their chief complaint or
Right.
complaints that they are
Right.
talking about. And
Right.
but what happens in reality is that because of all these reforms and requirements, the provider has to not only listen to the patient, they have to also monitor the EHRs, right? And the EHRs are so complex, their workflows are so complex that when they are monitoring the EHRs, they have to not only look at their current status, but they have to also look at history. And then there are a lot of add-on applications which are
Right.
built on top of EHR, which are trying to take the attention of provider. For example, uh, something is saying that, okay, there are some alerts which are saying, okay, there are care gaps that are pending, and you now need to address these care gaps when the patient has come for a visit, right? So that's a challenge. Right. And provider is not able to provide, complete attention to the patient. Right. And that, I believe, impacts the experience of the patient.
Makes sense.
Right.
That makes sense.
Now assume, and again, my question to you is that if all this documentation that needs to be done, if something like generative AI can take care of that,
Yes. Yes.
then
Absolutely.
hopefully the provider now can focus on the patient, don't have to worry about this, then somebody else will take care of it.
Correct.
Help me understand, can it do it?
Yes. So, but let me just reiterate on the problem. So, what you're saying is, as a healthcare provider,
Yes.
essentially a doctor, need
Yes.
not always be a doctor, but
Yes,
in most
you
cases,
can say a caregiver.
a
It could
caregiver.
be, yes.
Okay. So, is generally, they because of the volume of patients, or the volume of the cases that they generally have to handle, they generally get to spend about 10 to 12 minutes per patient. Is that correct?
Correct, absolutely.
Okay. So within these 10 to 12 minutes, they are supposed to talk to the patient. They are supposed to, document certain things.
Yes.
They are supposed to look at their EHR, which is their electronic health records.
Correct.
They are supposed to look at their history. They are supposed to see if there are gaps somewhere that happened, wherever
Correct.
anything has happened in the history.
Correct.
And also, make sure that the patient does not feel that they are not focusing on the patient and just
Absolutely.
looking at their iPad or
Yes,
whatever and
yes.
doing something.
Because
Right?
see, the primary thing is that you provide these services to the patient, you also need to get paid, right? So unless you get document all this,
Right.
the episode or whatever happened encounter with the patient, you are not going to get paid. So you have to document
Okay.
at a very precise level.
Understood. In addition to all of this, you also are, as a healthcare provider, you are also supposed to document everything
Absolutely.
that is going on right now. In addition to looking at the history,
Yes.
talking to the patient,
Yes.
and everything.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So this is okay. So this is something. I don't know. I think generative AI can, and this is the administrative burden that you are talking
Administrative
about.
burden that,
Excellent. And generative AI, like, this use
Correct.
case
So
falls
the
right
goal
into
of
the
this
lap of.
documentation is to make sure that there are no errors,
Right.
And
Right.
then there are, so they get quality scores based on the documentation,
Okay.
making sure the care gaps are
Got
addressed.
it.
They get
Got it.
to do a risk analysis of the patient. The
Got
more,
it.
especially people with chronic conditions,
Got it.
if you document them, then you have a higher risk score, and therefore, you are able to get more from, the insurance or Medicare.
Understood.
Right.
Understood. So, off the top of my head, I have seen other tools. We have built something similar in the sales space, wherein, when a sales rep is talking to a customer, we actually, in real time, transcribe that conversation and give recommendations to the sales rep.
Absolutely.
Right, on the screen. And this conversation, again, it's a health caregiver and a patient, right? But ultimately, I think it's a conversation. So an AI model can definitely transcribe this in real time, and also convert this into whatever kind of documentation, whatever kind of outcome that is required for the healthcare provider to submit to whatever authorities, right? So the administrative burden of the healthcare provider to take notes during the conversation can definitely be reduced. Also, can it really reduce the time that a healthcare provider spends in analyzing the historical details of a patient? Probably yes. We'll have to look at the specific kind
Sure,
of data, but I
absolutely.
think yes,
Yeah.
I think it definitely can,
So,
right?
so
So those 12
you're
minutes of
absolutely,
the provider are more valuable to the patient then, right?
absolutely. So as you can see, your one solution can solve many problems. There was another goal of that, Obamacare, which was added later on, that
Hmm.
you need to make sure that the physician burnout is reduced.
Right.
Now, you can imagine they are also human beings. They
Correct.
are trying to do so many things within those 10-12 minutes, and if something goes wrong, then you can be held accountable, right? So that creates a lot of pressure. I have heard of physicians working over the weekends to complete this documentation,
Oh,
right?
okay.
So
Okay.
they are sacrificing their personal time
Right.
to do this kind of documentation.
Right.
And if GenAI can help them, I think that will be a big blessing.
I think yes. So, in our last episode, the one you mentioned that we posted on LinkedIn, the one we had with Anirudh, we spoke about GitHub Copilot, which is a copilot for code, right? So we should probably start, expecting copilots for healthcare providers coming up really soon, if
Absolutely.
they don't already exist,
Absolutely.
right? I
Absolutely.
think they already exist, but a lot of people are working on it. We can also build something, and
Sure.
copilot for healthcare is something that's an absolutely possible use case that we can build,
Absolutely.
right? One interesting question I have for you, right? The question that Anirudh and I tried to answer in our previous podcast as well,
Yes.
and that was more of a generic thing: can generative AI take over your jobs? But the
Yeah.
question here I have for you is, can generative AI take over jobs from doctors, from healthcare providers? Do you think that's a possibility?
Um, to answer that question, I will give you certain examples, right?
Hmm.
So what's happening is, even before generative AI came into limelight, there were certain things happening. The AI was taking over certain types of jobs. For example, the radiology related jobs, uh, where you can do an image comparison and infer decisions out of that. That was already taken care of by AI, right?
Hmm.
So that's already, and I have worked on some use cases like that in the past as well.
Interesting.
So
Okay.
I'm very sure that's something, of course, and there are certain use cases where FDA has also provided. So certain things that are going to be of repetitive nature, those are going to be taken over by AI. That is for sure. So we have to be ready for that. However, uh, there are certain things that are left to the decision making.
Right.
There are a lot of concerns around patient safety. There are a lot of concerns around privacy. There are a lot of concerns around security of AI. I mean, the data that is
Data.
being
Yep.
handed over to.
Yep.
And generative AI, usually, the LLMs that we talk about are typically black boxes, considered as black boxes, right? So people have apprehensions around those. um, so my next question to you would be that, right? How generative AI is going to take care of this
The privacy
issues, the
issues.
privacy issues, the security issues, and the patient safety issues, if you are getting into the realm of clinical, solutions for the clinical side of healthcare.
Interesting, interesting. But before I deep dive into that question, and that's an interesting question, and that's something, data privacy and security is not just healthcare, but all industries, across all industries. That's a question that everyone has, and I'll come to that. But before that, just to, summarize the answer of the question, can generative AI take over jobs from healthcare providers and doctors? I think what you said is, in a way, it can take over, but then there always needs to be a human in the loop to validate certain things,
Absolutely,
right? Like, it
absolutely.
can take over, it can help the administrative stuff that we spoke about. It
Yes,
can, you said that AI in radiology has been used to identify certain things, images and things like that, and that was probably not generative AI but AI in general, right?
yes, yes.
And
And to add to that, Varun, what I've seen, what I have been reading about is that not only these repetitive jobs have already been done, but what's happening next is that uh, AI, people feel that they are able to express better with AI. right?
Oh,
So especially in the case of behavioral mental health related issues,
interesting.
when you are opening out with a human being, you always have this hesitancy. But whereas you are talking to generative AI or AI based technology, you feel more comfortable with that. Now you can take that use case and say a physician or a provider having their own reluctance to seek advice from another physician. In that case, they can maybe talk to an AI and start saying that I have these kind of questions, that I'm proposing this kind of solution, and is it right or wrong? And then maybe AI can come back and say, yeah, here are other options available for you, and that will help them as well, right?
Interesting. So,
The
so
other interesting point, sorry, I mean,
yeah, yeah,
I'm all
yeah. Go
excited
ahead.
about this.
Go
So,
ahead. Go ahead.
so the point is that we know that these providers specialize in one area or maximum two areas. Like, so somebody is an orthopedics guy and he wants to do an operation, and but human anatomy, as we know, there are a lot of other complications. People come with chronic diseases. You have a heart condition. You have other conditions that complicate your situation. And so, an AI can be combined with all the knowledge about different anatomies. They can be multi-speciality kind of thing, where a physician, before making the decision, can refer to them and say, what is the implication of what I'm going to do, probably on the heart of the patient, right?
Interesting.
Right. So those kind of inferences, if they're able to get from this AI, then that would be become their not assistant but a friend.
Interesting.
We want to treat
Interesting.
this as a friend who can guide us, mentor us during our difficult times.
That's interesting. So you actually said two things, Bhupesh,
Yeah,
and let me just quickly summarize it for our listeners. One is AI is people are trusting AI more than they are trusting their human counterparts. Right? Is that in the realm of mental health, in the realm of instead of talking to psychiatrists, are people more comfortable talking to AI agents? Is that what you're saying?
that's what the study indicates. That's what the
Wow.
study indicates. And that brings us to the question that I was trying to ask you prior. If humans have to trust this AI, then this AI has to be trustworthy. That means I have to be, it has to make sure that your privacy concerns, your security concerns,
Right.
safety concerns
It
are
it makes the
addressed.
privacy question a lot
Yes,
more important now.
absolutely. So
Yes.
that's my question to you. How can Gen AI help address these questions?
Yes. I'm sorry. There are two things you mentioned in the previous one, right? I'll come to privacy. I know it's an all important topic for us to talk about. But the second thing you mentioned, and I want to draw relations to what Anirudh and I spoke about in our previous podcast,
Yeah.
of using ChatGPT especially as a brainstorming partner. I do
Okay.
that all the time.
Okay.
And now what you're saying is doctors also do that, especially
Absolutely.
with specialized AI models, where if I am a orthopedic surgeon and I want to understand how a surgery that I'm doing might impact the heart of a particular patient,
Yes.
then I'll probably just talk to a AI rather than calling a cardiologist and asking them for their this thing. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely.
Oh, so it is taking over jobs.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay. Now that that's out of the way, that AI can probably still take over a lot of jobs in
Yeah.
healthcare. Now I'll address the security concern that you have been bringing up since a long time. So data privacy and data security in the world of AI is something that is a question across industries. It is not just the healthcare industry.
Okay.
Of course, it's a lot more important when you talk about healthcare industry. A particular patient's data should not be leaked. There are a lot of compliances with where
HIPAA, for
HIPAA,
example.
yeah. So if you don't comply to certain things, then you could be liable to a huge fine, maybe even
Yes.
prison and a lot
Yes.
of things, right? So,
Absolutely.
and things are very strict in US healthcare,
Absolutely.
right? But again, similar things are applicable to data privacy and data security in the BFSI banking industry, right?
Right.
We are doing a couple of things there, and again, the same questions come over there as well, right?
Okay.
Because there's a lot of sensitive information there that people
Okay.
share. One is, what a lot of people are generally, doing in this is, and that is what 2024 is probably going to be focused on. Most of the effort in 2024 is going to be focused on this. Is one is running models locally
Okay.
within your infra. So,
Okay.
for example, if there is a healthcare provider, a clinic, for example, right, they can probably have on-prem infrastructure where the large language models or the AI models are running, and then the data doesn't go out of their network or out
Okay.
of their environment at all.
Okay.
Right. So,
That's nice.
in that case, the data is there, and they are bound by all the compliances that are applicable to them, but the data is there. It is not going out of their systems at all.
Okay.
Right. So that's one thing that people are doing. The one step beyond that is we are also looking at not just large language models but also small language models,
Okay.
which are very specific models specialized in just a few specific areas, and they can run on smaller devices as well. So,
Okay.
for example, you could have a small language model running on your iPhone or
Okay.
your iPad.
Okay.
Right. In fact, even large language models can run on your iPhones and iPads, but small language models, right? And
Okay.
these are not really small. For that matter, they are still decent sized models who have a good amount of capability, but they can run on your edge devices, right?
Okay.
So running language models on edge devices
Okay.
is something that is going to see a lot of traction in this year in 2024,
Okay.
and that kind of addresses a lot of these concerns of security in AI, right? So,
Okay.
any questions you ask, any data that is provided, it's still on that device. It doesn't go anywhere on the internet. It doesn't, it just, there's no scope for it to get leaked at all, right?
So let me try and summarize in your style.
Absolutely,
So what
yes,
you're saying now, Varun, is that providers need not worry that their data will be moving out of their infrastructure or out of
correct,
their premises into cloud, and therefore the data remains safe with them, and they can. It's like you can eat the cake, you can have the cake and eat it too,
correct,
right?
correct.
Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Wow.
That
Okay.
absolutely summarizes it.
Okay.
Awesome.
Excellent.
So, and
Excellent.
yeah, and that's how people are addressing this concern. And I think this as a technology is new. I'm sure when other technology, non-AI, right, when that came up, and when healthcare started adopting that, there were a lot of the challenges, a lot of issues came up, and probably that's the reason why a lot of these compliances have been introduced, right?
Okay.
And governance for AI is something that a lot of governments are working towards.
Okay.
So governing AI, we will probably start seeing a lot of policies around this as well,
Okay.
and there will be a set of rules that we have to abide by, and that's how a lot of these will also start
Absolutely.
taking up.
Absolutely. I'm
So, for
sure. I'm
example,
sure. Yeah.
HIPAA for AI kind of things, probably, right? So
Absolutely.
something like that, right? So
Absolutely.
things like that will come up.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great to hear that. Cool.
Beyond just AI, right? I'm more curious on just from a because I come from a non-healthcare background. I've not worked a lot in healthcare, right? So
Right.
I would love to understand what else are we doing in healthcare as Coditas, right? Beyond AI, it could also be AI if you want to add, but
Sure.
beyond AI, what else are we doing in healthcare at
So typically, Varun, we'll need another episode just to explain what we are doing,
Coditas? Got
right?
it.
So that's a whole lot of stuff. But
Okay.
let me try and put it in one or two points in
Okay.
terms of. So one is we are trying to solve what we call as operational challenges that the healthcare industry is facing today.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, I'll give you, we are providing for medtech industry, we are providing something called as digital twins. Have you heard of
Okay.
digital twins?
I have.
Right.
Yes.
So in this, and I'll tell you a real life example where we have solved this problem. Or one of our medtech device company, they are providing devices in the field. Uh, it was very difficult for them to monitor the performance of these devices, and this was critical for their customers, right? They are not only providing devices, they are providing supplies that are required to make sure that the providers are able to use these devices. And providers will often book appointments and run out of supplies, and then they are not able to attend to their
Okay.
patients or the
Okay.
customers.
Okay.
And therefore, we being able to remotely monitor the situation of the device, we are able to now proactively tell them that your device is having certain problems. We send the replacement even before they put the requisition. We send them the supplies even before they. So based on the appointments data that we receive from them,
Mm-hmm.
we are able to proactively monitor. and then provide them the supplies, and they're surprised, even I have not ordered, but supplies come, and my business is running uninterrupted. So
Interesting.
that is a use case where you are not only providing oversight on their devices. You are not just selling the devices, but you are providing support to
Service
them
and support.
proactively,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
And that's only
Interesting.
possible because of the technology infrastructure that you have built for them.
Interesting.
Now, apart from this, these are like operational challenges, and we are getting into a whole lot of other operational, like solving interoperability problems through
Okay.
providing like a common infrastructure.
Okay.
Like I would say, treating your while interoperability problem is not easy to solve, you can always encapsulate it from the
Okay.
end user. So we are putting it like a black box for them and say, okay, you don't worry about the complexities within that. We are going to take care of the complexity.
Interesting.
You just interface here.
Interesting.
That's one. Then from a innovation perspective, we are as a company, we are investing to build infrastructure that would allow them to reap benefits of something like generative AI. For example, uh, you know that the healthcare data, which is also called the real world evidence data, which comes from the EHRs, patient generated data. Apart from this data, there is also the genomics data, right? People are now getting tested, identifying their genome profiles, and using these genomic profiles along with the healthcare data, real world evidence data, provides you a lot of visibility into the healthcare conditions of the patient. So we are in partnership with we are an advanced tier partner with AWS, and we are using their expertise. We are using our expertise along with their infrastructure to build certain accelerators,
Right.
which will help them do this on the fly.
Yep, that I know, that I'm involved in. I
Yes.
know, yes. So we are building a couple of accelerators that can actually speed up the entire delivery of this using AI models within your healthcare scenario. And we can probably have another episode to talk
Sure.
more about that, or we can actually in fact a lot of these things that Bhupesh spoke about are solutions that we have built, and a couple of our customers are already using it. So in case you have any need for such solutions, or if you're just curious and want to explore it, just reach out to us, and we can of course set up a demo for you and you can explore it further.
Also, we are working with, I mentioned to you about the radiology related stuff, right? So we are actually, in fact, helping clinical research organizations. We are working on with certain customers who are trying to treat or identify, drugs for Alzheimer's patient. And to speed up that, drug uh, discovery process, we have automated certain workflows. These workflows actually, help them speed up the drug discovery process.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So that is interesting, Bhupesh. And just to add to the accelerator point you mentioned, so that is something that that involves generative AI and the entire healthcare workflows. So as Coditas, we have been working on this for quite some time. Some of our customers are already using it, and if you are either curious about it or want to use it in any of the workflow that you think it might be useful for you or beneficial for you, feel free to reach out to me or Bhupesh or anyone else at Coditas, and we'll see if we can set up a demo for you on that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool. That was good, Bhupesh. Anything you want to add as conclusion here?
No, we are visiting HIMSS this year. I've been visiting HIMSS for last almost 15 years, but this year I am all excited because we are going to demonstrate, AI, and we have something to demonstrate at AI. And we look forward to meeting all of you guys there and trying to showcase what we have for you.
Okay, so yes, we are going to be at HIMSS, and if you are at HIMSS, do reach out to me and Bhupesh, and let's catch up at HIMSS this year. And thank you, Bhupesh, for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and this is me signing off. See you again in our next episode. That is, if AI hasn't taken over the world yet. Cool.